Yeah. Yeah. This is everything that I listened to in February. What's poppin', everybody? Welcome back to another Blam Wagon video. I'm gonna run through everything that I listened to in the month of February. As always, you guys know the drill. I listened to 13 new albums. I'm gonna give you a rating. I'm gonna give you a review, tell you what I think is worth your time or not. I've had a couple of big life changes happen to me recently, so uploads have been a little bit slower than usual. I'd like to apologize for that. Now that I'm swinging back into the groove of things, I should be able to post content here a little bit more frequently. But regardless, hope everybody had a fantastic month, listened to a lot of very, very cool stuff. And I don't want to waste too much of your time. Let's just hop right into it. First, I listened to Neveroddoreven by iMonster. Severely underrated and overlooked, Neveroddoreven presents the listener with rich, layered, and atmospheric production, accompanied by some truly alien, mystical, and whimsical vocals. An electronic album that released in 2003 that sounds this textured and layered and engaging and unique is truly a feat on its own. It's able to blend electronic, down-tempo, and psychedelia so effortlessly to create something truly different from its predecessors. I do think that this record starts off unbelievably strong, especially with heavy hitters like Daydream and Blue and Who Is She, but falls off a little and stumbles towards the end with tonally divisive and inconsistent tracks like the unengaging These Are Our Children and the playful yet immature first act of The Blue Wrath. But overall, it's a uniquely fun record that's absolutely worth your time, even if it's a tad inconsistent at times. And like I said earlier, I'm a little bit shocked that this thing does not receive nearly as much coverage as it should. Because few flaws aside, this thing has such a unique and engaging personality. And it's just very fun. I'm gonna give iMonster an 8.5.
None of you stand so tall. Pink moon, gonna get you onto pink moon.
Next, I listened to Pink Moon by Nick Drake. I was unfamiliar with Nick Drake and his final record, Pink Moon, but it was actually recommended to me by Joe in an interview that I watched from him. And it's no surprise to see how highly rated and acclaimed this thing really is. Did a little research into Nick Drake as an artist, performer, and just as a person before giving this record a shot, and understanding him a little bit better made the experience all the more impactful. Passing away at the age of 26 to overdose, Nick Drake's Pink Moon didn't reach critical acclaim until after his death. He was clearly a generational talent, an influence on his contemporaries, and a masterclass in contemporary folk. And it'd be an understatement to say that we lost him too soon. After reviewing music for a little over 4 years, you grow very tired of claiming that a record is intimate or vulnerable, but it's never been more true than with Pink Moon. There is a silence to his suffering that bleeds through his beautiful and delicate performance here. Every note, every string, every breath is overflowing with passion, which leads to a beautifully enchanting yet somberly devastating listen. This thing is pretty airtight. There is very little duds or lulls on the track list. I guess if you're not really into the slower kind of style of contemporary folk, then this might not be for you. But it's hard to walk away from this listen feeling unmoved. And I'm gonna give Nick Drake's Pink Moon a 9. Next, I listened to Cowards by Squid. From the morality of systemized cannibalism to Frank the American and the escapades of loneliness and paranoia, Squid's playing with interesting themes and concepts on Cowards, but similarly to how I felt about their last 2 records, they sort of fall flat in their execution. I find a lot to admire about their production aside from a couple mixing issues here and there, but the vocals are just so unappealing and unremarkable to me. I quite enjoy the fast-paced, almost dance punk-esque tracks here like Crispy Skin and Showtime, but found the slower ones to be really, really sluggish. I still think these guys have a lot of untapped potential that they've yet to fully explore. The framework is there and the production is fun and unique enough. It's just missing a couple integral pieces that make up a complete and fundamental album. Not a record that I could see myself returning to very often, but I have to admit that I did enjoy most of what I heard. Just nothing that blew me away. And I'm gonna give Squid a 7. Make a wish because next I listened to Biig Piig's 1111. I'm gonna cut that. 1111 starts off unbelievably strong and then stumbles a little towards the end. The high energy tracks like 4 AM, Ponytail, Decimal, and 9-5 give off such an undeniable groove and energy. With a sound that feels accessible and danceable, but one that challenges the listener with unique and clever production. I went into this record expecting a by-the-numbers pop record, but was pleasantly surprised with how different this felt from its counterparts. Where this record falls off is in its ballads and slower cuts, such as Silhouette, One-Way Ticket, and Brighter Day. These tracks aren't bad per se, but they lack the ambition seen in the record's first act and don't seem to nail the atmosphere that they attempt to capture. Regardless, this is going to get severely overlooked, which is a shame considering that there is actually a lot to enjoy here. It's nothing revolutionary, obviously, but it's still good. I'm gonna give Biig Piig a 7. Next, I listened to My Star by Junior Varsity. This record's not doing anything groundbreaking, but it cements the group as one of the biggest bands to look out for over the next couple of years. Short but sweet, delivering some immensely catchy hooks, some glitchy production, and some unique performances. With a sound that is very reminiscent of a coming-of-age film soundtrack. It's a little by the numbers, sure, and feels a tad predictable, but as far as earworm indie rock sound goes, My Star is pretty immaculate. I'm loving the cheerleader-esque chants sprinkled throughout these songs, which makes the start to finish listening experience of the record feel very consistent. It's very short, which results in a somewhat unremarkable listen, and the 1 to 2 interlude type tracks feel pretty unnecessary, with the last track in particular feeling like a complete miss and an absolute skip on a re-listen. Regardless, I'm excited to see where Junior Varsity take their sound from here, and I will be on the lookout to see what happens next. Cross the Street, New York, and Give My Heart have remained in my rotation for about a month now, so I'm rocking with these guys quite a bit. And while it's nothing special, I can't help but dig it. And I'm gonna give Junior Varsity a 7.5.
Believe in me, we got sticks in the club illegally. Got the whole 6 side, they believe in me. We got members east of the DVP. We got members west on the 401. We got a lock on the game, but there's more to come. You gotta pop that ass till the morning come. You want shots for the girls, they don't order some.
Next, I listened to PARTYNEXTDOOR and Drake's Some Sexy Songs for You. You really have to be living under a rock to not know what's going on with the Drake drama as of late. Long story short, dude's kind of a creep, lost a monumental diss battle to Kendrick Lamar, one of the greats. I've never been a fan. I can't say that I've really enjoyed a single record from him, with the exception of potentially Nothing Was the Same, which I think is a pretty all-right record. But his new stuff, I mean, forget about it. I haven't liked a single thing that this guy has released in about a decade. And Some Sexy Songs for You is, to no surprise to anyone, not an exception. It's too long to start. No one wants to sit down and listen to a Drake record that is over an hour in length, especially considering most of these tracks sound the same, and unremarkably so. There are 1 or 2 tracks on here that could be argued as all right. I would say that I enjoy to some extent the track Give Me a Hug, as well as Nokia, which at least present Drake as doing something a little bit different here. But apart from them being moderately catchy, even those cuts don't really do much for me, admittedly. Not to mention the track Meet Your Padre, which is going viral for how terrible it truly is. Might be one of Drake's worst tracks of all time. And while this record is supposed to share the spotlight with PARTYNEXTDOOR, he feels notably absent from the remainder of this project. Drake really could have spent some time working on his pen game, bouncing back with a great performance after the monumental defeat against Kendrick Lamar, but it just wasn't in the cards because this thing is pretty embarrassing and pretty laughably bad. If Drake's career wasn't already over, then it certainly is now. I do think that this is probably one of his worst records to date. And I'm gonna give Some Sexy Songs for You a 2.5. Next, I listened to Mahal by Glass Beams, which provides some of the greatest vibes known to man. Short but sweet, Mahal offers a sample of peak neo-psychedelia with undertones of Middle Eastern strings and drums. A truly airtight EP. There isn't much to complain about with what is offered here. My only real complaint is that I wish that we had gotten a little bit more. Rich with potential and the start of something truly fantastic. I can't wait to see what this band has up their sleeves next and can see this record sticking with me for quite some time. This thing is instrumental only, which is not a knock against it at all. I think that vocals actually would have squandered the atmosphere and aesthetic that this record seems to nail. And the title track, Mahal, is one of the vibiest cuts to come out of last year. Can't help but feel that these guys are only just now getting started, and I think that we're going to see a lot more of them in the near future. And yeah, I'm rocking with this one quite a bit. I'm gonna give Mahal an 8. Next, I listened to Ghostholding by Venturing. I had a strange relationship with Jane Remover's catalog. I'm able to find intrigue in elements of frailty, but fail to see the hype behind her last record, Census Designated. I absolutely adore tracks here and there like Search Party or Always Have, Always Will, but for the most part, I just struggle to fully enjoy her work. And so it's refreshing to see her lean fully into a shoegaze-heavy, stripped-back sound, which is a style that I think really suits her voice and charisma. With that being said, the majority of this record just doesn't do much for me. Nothing's bad outside of a couple of tracks feeling a little too messy or aimless. Tracks like No Sleep, which feel a little bit too disorienting and unorganized for me to really properly enjoy or understand. But some of this is really good, with tracks like Play My Guitar and Dead Forever feeling truly timeless and passionate in their production and delivery. But I'm not loving the amateurish nature of her vocals, which clash somewhat with the pretty airtight production and guitar work here. Overall, I enjoy the direction that Jane took her sound on Ghostholding, although find some of it to be a little boring in its execution. Nice little side project though, pretty inoffensive, could have been worse. And I'm gonna give Ghostholding a 7.
Won't you two hands on me like my life needs saving, let 'em all go. Can you do it like that?
Next I'll listen to Tate McRae's So Close to What. Huge day for H&M store playlists around the world. I don't know who Tate McRae is. A couple weeks ago was the first time I've ever heard of her or her music. And while she looks like someone that would have bullied me in high school, girl can write a satisfying hook. But that's pretty much it. Every fiber of this record's being feels scientifically and strategically crafted to get radio play. There's very little passion, drive, and personality to be found on this record. Admittedly, got some decent cuts in the first half, like Dear God and Sports Car, nailing an earworm sound while managing to be unique and bubbly, which was fun. But halfway through, this record gets unbelievably derivative and uninspired, which is really saying something considering the first half isn't all too great. Really wish I liked this thing more than I do. I'm a fan of pop, and it would have been nice to enjoy a new face on the scene, but unfortunately, this just wasn't it. So if you want some music to get stuck in your head, this might be right up your alley. Otherwise, nothing to write home about. And I'm gonna give So Close to What a 5.5.
Got along with it when she blew me down, it was a breeze. I got raw denim on my body, yes, it's Japanese. Raw denim in my DNA, cause it's in my jeans. Just a raw nigga down to the core.
Next Next, I listened to They Left Me With the Sword by Paris, Texas. Midair from 2023 was a love it or hate it album, feeling pretty divisive from the jump. I happen to fall firmly in the camp of enjoying most of its material, even if some of it was a bit of a mixed bag. I mostly enjoyed the rap rock fusion the group was playing with. And on They Left Me With the Sword, that sound is still present, but they're also experimenting with elements of electronic as well. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. The duo isn't really on their best pen game, nor are they delivering their best performances at times. They're often tripping over the beats or failing to stay on rhythm. But despite this, the energy is still there and there's enough fun to be had within the short EP to make it a worthwhile listen. Tantrum is a really fun rage rock rap cut that I think is gonna go down as one of the best rap tracks to come out of this year. And the Kenny Beats production on Holy Spinal Fluid is weird, quirky, but goes hard in its own respect. While I'm not really rocking with the kind of slower, more sensual R&B cut, Red Eyes and Blue Hearts. If anything, just give the music video a shot. These guys are certainly a unique bunch, but I'm gonna give They Left Me With the Sword a 7. And we're gonna stick on the Paris, Texas train for one more moment because I also listened to
Baby, want you no lie. I know I'ma be around every night. I know.
They Left Me With a Gun, which is the second part of this EP duo, which is not as fun or as catchy as their last EP, despite their attempts to lean back into the sound that put them on the map in the first place. Because They Left Me With a Gun is far more rock-oriented, with a handful of cuts off of this EP feeling heavily inspired by the likes of someone like Gene Dawson. Most of these tracks either have killer choruses but weak verses, or strong verses and lackluster choruses. There's very little in between. Take Mudbone, for example, which comes through with one of the group's best melodic choruses, which is slightly ruined by a muddy, no pun intended, and unorganized flow and cadence throughout their verses. I'm a fan of Stripper Song, which feels far more grounded than the rest of the tracks here, as well as No Strings, which feels like more of an alternative rock track than anything. They continue to nail the vibe and quirkiness that I find endearing in the rest of their discography. Just wasn't feeling this one as much as the last one, I suppose. And I'm gonna give They Left Me With a Gun a 6.5. Next, I listened to Salvation by Rebecca Black. Pretty hard to believe that this is the girl that made Friday. I truthfully haven't really been on the Rebecca Black train as hard as I should be. I half-heartedly listened to her last LP, Let Her Burn, and didn't really think anything of it at the time. Yet after hearing how far she's progressed her sound on this record, I could consider myself a fan. Black delivers some incredibly solid, well-produced, catchy, and unique electropop that feels very reminiscent of Charli XCX's Brat. It's filled to the brim with personality, especially on tracks like Salvation and Trust, which feel very uniquely her. And while she's wearing her inspirations on her sleeve, she's able to make a name for herself and really stand out within the electro dance pop industry. Standout tracks are far more memorable and enjoyable than some of the weaker cuts here, and the whole thing does get a little bit derivative towards the end, but this is a step in the right direction, and I am excited to see what Rebecca Black does from here. Favorite tracks being Salvation, Trust, and Do You Even Think About Me. This one surprised me quite a bit. Didn't think I'd like it, and I do. So I'm gonna give it a 7.5. And to finish off the month, I listened to the new Ichiko Aoba record, Luminescent Creatures. It's a record that really makes you stop and smell the roses. I'm gonna get a little preachy for a second, but I listened to this record driving home from work at sundown and feeling the euphoria and the pure bliss that this record delivers, all while taking in the earth and the life around me was truly just a wonderfully pleasant experience. This record feels a little larger than life in its elegance and delicacy, but also in its calmness and stillness. Because it's a quiet record, not one that will blow you away on its own, but one that feels like an accomplice to the feeling of tranquility and peace. That being said, you certainly have to be in a very specific mindset to fully appreciate this listen. I'd say it's a little bit repetitive and trance-like the longer you sit with it, and that's certainly not for everybody. But ultimately, music in its most powerful form evokes emotion. And Ichiko Aoba absolutely strikes more than a few chords on this thing. There's not really much of a dull moment on this thing, despite there being some tracks that are quieter and maybe a little bit more subdued than others, but even those are beautiful in their own right. And I'm gonna give Luminescent Creatures an 8.5. And that's it, dude. That's everything that I listened to in the month of February. What did you listen to in the month of February? Let me know in the comments below if I missed anything. A lot of EPs this month, which is interesting. It's usually a slower time for music releases, but come March and April, we should be getting quite a bit more content. We certainly started off the year strong. We've got some heavy hitters thus far. As always, if you want to see more content just like this, like, comment, subscribe, share, the whole shebang. You guys know the drill. Stay on the lookout for some more brackets and tier lists. I've got some stuff cooking. Stay hydrated. Good night. Don't let the bed bugs bite. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Fuck.